Chief Justice Warren Burger once wrote, "The obligation of our profession is to serve as healers of human conflict." Welcome to Lawyers as Healers, a podcast exploring an evolution happening inside the American legal profession. I am your host, Dave Albrechta. I am a coach, a mediator, and a recovering litigator. In this podcast, I'll explore how and why an increasing number of lawyers are moving beyond adversarial thinking to return to the obligation of our profession, which is to serve as healers of human conflict. This is the first episode of Lawyers as Healers. More specifically, we're going to be talking about lawyers as healers of human conflict. And I have to start by saying, even a few years ago, I would have thought that this title was a little silly, maybe even absurd. I would have been pretty shocked hearing lawyers and healers in the same sentence. But I'm here to tell you about my journey to this point and why I'm doing this podcast and why I think this discussion is really important right now. So I started practicing law in 2015. My wife and I opened up a firm together in Durango, Colorado. For about 10 years, I litigated employment cases, mostly in federal court on the employee side. And in 2023, I began really questioning what I was up to in life. There are a whole series of things that led to that, and I'll explain those as we go through this podcast. But for right now, let's just say there were a lot of forces that were causing me to question my role as a lawyer. I was questioning the litigation system as a whole and beginning to think about alternatives and if there was a way that I could continue to be a lawyer, but in a different way that felt a little better and was more aligned with who I am. So through a series of events, which again, I'll talk about later, I ended up searching those questions and doing some Google searching late at night and stumbled across a whole bunch of different things and movements and people, some of whom we'll talk to, and all of which I hope to introduce over time. But one of the first things I read when I was searching for ways to continue being a lawyer, I found this quote from Chief Justice Warren Burger, which I introduced in the beginning, in the intro. And I'll read it again now, just in case you missed it. He wrote, "The obligation of our profession is or has long been thought to be to serve as healers of human conflict." And this quote really stuck with me. It really, hit a nerve, or it landed really hard with me in a few ways. I am primarily hearing a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court talk about lawyers as healers was shocking to me and surprising. And there's this other element of thinking about this in terms of that this is not only the obligation of our profession, but it's long been the obligation of our profession, was really refreshing. It was inspiring. It gave me some hope about the future and my future and my ability to find a role. It kind of felt like it normalized how I was feeling and gave me some energy to really feel like I could keep doing this, but find a healthier way for myself to do it. And obviously the word healer carried a lot of weight for me, and so much so that I created this podcast. But what really hit me was this idea of healing human conflict. And obviously we all know and talk about resolving disputes and settling disputes and alternative dispute resolution and how do we help clients resolve these things and move on. but I had never heard someone describe it as healing. And to me, healing and describing lawyers as healers takes it to a different level. Healing feels to me more active than resolution or settlement. It feels like it's getting underneath the surface of a dispute. If you're healing something, you're fixing it or repairing it. Um, and first of all, you have to admit that there's something to fix or repair in the first place. And a settlement or a resolution, you could argue, fixes things, but I don't know that it does. I think it more it just resolves it. It ends the dispute. Healing is looking below what that dispute is, at least to me, looking below what the party's interests and positions and what's what are they actually arguing and fighting about, looking underneath that and saying what's actually going on here, what's broken, what needs to be repaired in these people's relationship, or how these individuals are functioning in the world, how they're communicating or not communicating. And so to me, healing goes to that deeper level. So again, to hear a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court talking about lawyers as healers of human conflict was an eye opener and really began to shift my perspective about the role that lawyers can play in conflict and society at large. So I think this is a really important conversation right now for a couple different reasons. One is having been a practicing lawyer for about 10 years and just seeing and sensing the dissatisfaction that is pretty pervasive throughout the industry, and talking to other lawyers who are practicing, I didn't run into a whole lot of lawyers that were really, really happy and really enjoying their work. I know they're out there. I know a few of them, and there's certainly some absolutely fantastic litigators that are amazing at their jobs and love their work. And I know they exist because I know a handful of them. But I think on the whole, more often than not, the lawyers I was interacting with did not give off those vibes, so to speak. And most people did not seem all that happy in their job. And I could feel and sense the dissatisfaction and the burnout of that comes with being in that adversarial culture all the time. I felt it. I experienced it. I certainly wasn't happy towards the end of it. I'd have good days and bad days like anybody, but I wasn't loving the work that I was doing all the time. And so I think it's a really important conversation to think about how we can show up differently as lawyers in a way that is more satisfying and more fulfilling for the lawyers and for the clients. I think that's really important. And then secondly is the bigger perspective, which is conflict just seems to be everywhere right now. And I think you could say that about any era, but it certainly feels pretty pervasive in our culture and in American life for sure. It seems like we've lost the art of debate and dialogue and healthy discussion about different viewpoints. We've kind of lost the ability to agree to disagree and still have conversations about what matters. And certainly many of us aren't practicing it as we could be. And our leaders aren't demonstrating that ability either. We don't even have a good role model or example to show us what that, or remind us what that looks like right now. So, with all of that going on in the US, wars abroad, it just feels like conflict is everywhere. And I think lawyers are in a very important position and could play a pivotal part in shifting and reshaping how we think about conflict. And again, back to the name, how we help heal that conflict on a deeper level than just resolving it or being good at negotiating or trying to outmaneuver another party, but actually looking underneath the conflict on its surface, getting underneath that and really looking at what is broken and how can lawyers help fix that. The last piece of this, I can't go without at least mentioning AI and how that's changing everything these days, including how lawyers interact and how we do our jobs. And who knows where this is going, but it certainly feels like it's going to create some lasting and pretty meaningful change. And so I think that, in my perspective, the more lawyers can make our jobs human centered and dealing with things that only humans can understand, which really gets to the heart of healing a conflict and getting below that and looking at human relationships, makes our jobs more secure, in my opinion. So I think that's worth mentioning as well. So throughout these initial episodes, I just kind of want to introduce myself. I want to introduce my journey from litigating to mediation to integrative law to where I'm at now with coaching and a kind of a blend of all of those things. And I want to introduce the questions that came up for me along that journey, what made me begin questioning what I was doing and how I could do it differently. And as I introduce those questions, those are going to kind of lay the groundwork for the rest of this podcast. So we'll spend a few episodes doing that. And then I'm really excited to start bringing in some guests to talk to people who are out there doing this work and explore with them their journeys, how they got where they are, and how they are changing the face of law and the role of lawyers in society. I'm really excited to introduce a lot of these folks and meet new people along the way myself. So that's my primary goal, is to explore how lawyers can show up differently, how we can change our role in conflict in society at large. And I'm really excited to explore how we can create new systems of justice, both inside and adjacent to our current legal system, that I think will only improve the services we provide to people that are in conflict. So thank you again for joining me today. I really appreciate that you spent the time listening to this first episode. I get really excited when I think about a legal system that is compassionate and empathetic and truly human-centered, with human values at its core, and a system that is really focused on building people up and helping people improve. So if that's of interest to you, I hope you'll keep listening. I'm really excited to begin introducing the ideas that I've learned about and the new ways that I've experienced lawyers are reshaping, their role. And I'm excited to learn about more because I know there's a lot out there that I don't know about yet. So again, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you spending your time with me. And until next time, take care of each other and be well.